Please be seated, ladies and gentlemen. Ayubowan.
Vanakkam.
Well, that's how we greet each other in Sri Lanka. And the meaning of Ayubowan, as you know, is wish you long life. Ayusha vitarak boho wela madi. Having long life alone is not good enough. Long life has to be coupled with quality life. So how do we get quality life? Well, quality people, quality company, quality things in life, quality food, quality drink, and also quality industries that we are connected with. So we know that the tourism industry is a very vibrant and quality industry, not only for Sri Lanka, but for almost all parts of the world. So today is the 27th of September, and people the world over is celebrating the World Tourism Day for 2023. So shall we please put our hands together and wish each and every person in Sri Lanka and the world over, come on, a big round of applause for Happy World Tourism Day. And I'm sure every part of the world is celebrating and having their own programs to celebrate the World Tourism Day, and Sri Lanka is no exception. So here is the national event celebrating the World Tourism Day, organized by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. And we have a great theme, as you can see on the screen, tourism and green investments. So this is definitely going to be a boost to our very own vibrant industry, which is definitely going to take Sri Lanka to the next level. Publicity Busilu Dinata Manatarak Ayubowan Kiwin. Ada itamatmu සුවිශේෂී දවසක් ශ්‍රී ලංකා සංචාරක සංවර්ධන අධිකාරිය මගින් සංවිධානය කරන 2023 ලෝක සංචාරක දිනය සමරන මේ නිල උත්සවයට පැමිණි ඔබ සියලු දෙනා බොහොම ගෞරවයෙන් අපි පිළිගන්න අතර සංචාර කර්මාන්තය සහ හරිත ආයෝජනය කියන මේ තේමාව යටතේ පැවැත්වෙන නිල උත්සවයටයි ඔබ සියලු දෙනාව මේ සහභාගී වෙන්නේ. නිර්පිතා වணக்கம்.
வணக்கம் கிளிஃபர்ட். உலக சுற்றுலா தினம் 2023 நிகழ்வுகளுக்கு வருகை தந்திருக்கும் உங்கள் அனைவரையும் நாங்கள் அன்போடு வரவேற்கின்றோம். சுற்றுலா மற்றும் பசுமை முதலீடு என்கின்ற தொனிப்பொருளிலே இன்றைய தினத்திற்கான நிகழ்ச்சிகள் அனைத்தும் நிறைவேற இருக்கின்றன. அந்த வகையிலே முதலாவது நிகழ்வாக தேசிய கீதம் இடம்பெறும்.
Right, so let's begin our program by singing our national anthem. We request you, ladies and gentlemen, to kindly rise to your feet as we get together and sing our national anthem. අපගේ සම්ප්‍රදායන්ට ගරු කරමින් පහන් දල්වා උත්සවයේ වැඩ කටයුතු අපි ආරම්භ කරන්නයි මේ සූදානම්.
தொடர்ந்து மங்கள விளக்கேற்றல் நிகழ்வு இடம்பெறும்.
So we have floating candles, a structure of floating candles that you see in front of you. And to light those candles, we'd like to invite the following delegates. We'd like to invite the Secretary to the Ministry of Tourism and Lands, Mr. Buanaka Herath. Mr. Jayasiri Thenakon, the Additional Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Lands. Mr. Priyantha Fernando, the Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Mr. Shurantha Perez, the Chairman of Slitham, the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management. And also Mr. Chalaka Gajabaho, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau. We also very warmly invite Madam Asuza Kubota, Resident Representative, UNDP Sri Lanka, our keynote speaker, and also Madam Suranga Vithanage, the Director General, Planning, Ministry of Tourism and Lands, Madam Jeevanti Seranayaka, Director General of Slitham, the Attorney at Law, Panduka Kirtinanda, Chairman, Tourism Advisory Committee, Mr. M. Shantikumar, the Board Member, SLTDA, and also Mr. Nishantakure, Board Member, SLTDA. We also invite Madam Anoma Nandani, Board Member of SLTDA, and also Mr. Upali Ratnayaka, Deputy Director General of SLTDA, and also Mr. Udana Vikramasinghe, Director, Research and International Relations for SLTDA, and also Mr. Mihira Leonardo, Director, Human Resources and Premises Management for SLTDA, and also Madam Taranga Rupasinghe, Director, Standards and Quality Assurance for SLTDA, and also Mr. Sampath Ganepalarachi, Director, Finance, SLTDA, and Mr. Chintaka Abekon, Director, ICT for SLTDA. A very special event, a very special national event, and serving as a global platform, as you know, as you realize, to raise awareness about the significant role or the significance that tourism plays in fostering socio-cultural exchange and also economic growth and sustainable development. We have many interesting items that we have lined up, but right now, following traditions by lighting the floating candles that you see in front of you. With that, we say a big thank you to all distinguished invitees for doing the honors in lighting the floating candles in front of you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Nila Utsave, වැඩ කටයුතු ඉදිරියට අපි කරගෙන යන්න මේ සූදානම් වෙන මොහොතේ අද මේ සුවිශේෂී දිනේ සැප්තැම්බර් මාස 27 වෙනි දිනේ ලෝපුරා සමුණු ලබන වාර්ෂික උත්සවයක් ඒ වගේම ආර්ථික වර්ධනය සහ තිරසාර සංවර්ධනය සඳහා සංචාරක ව්‍යාපාරය විසින් ඉටු කරනු ලබන වැදගත් කාර්යභාරය පිළිබඳව දැනුවත් කිරීමට ඉතාමත්ම හොඳ තෝතැන්නක් ප්ලැට්ෆෝම් එකක් ගෝලීය වේදිකාවක් ලෙස මෙය හඳුන්වන්න පුළුවන්.
நிச்சயமாக சுற்றுச்சூழல் மற்றும் மனித இனத்தை மேம்படுத்தும் நோக்கோடு 1980ஆம் ஆண்டு ஐக்கிய நாடுகள் சபை செப்டம்பர் மாதம் 27ஆம் தேதியை சுற்றுலா தினமாக பிரகடனப்படுத்தி இருந்தது. சுற்றுலாவானது சமூக கலாச்சார ஒன்றிணைவு மற்றும் பொருளாதார வளர்ச்சி நிலைத்து நிற்கும் அபிவிருத்திக்கு எவ்வாறான பங்காற்றுகிறது என்பது தொடர்பான விழிப்புணர்ச்சியை மக்கள் மத்தியில் ஏற்படுத்துவதே இதன் நோக்கமாக இருந்தது. அதன்படி ஒவ்வொரு ஆண்டும் சுற்றுலாத்துறை எதிர்நோக்குகின்ற சவால்கள் அதிலே காணப்படுகின்ற வாய்ப்புகளை பிரதிநிதித்துவப்படுத்தி ஒவ்வொரு தொழிற்பொருட்களை ஆண்டுதோறும் அமைத்து வருகிறது. அந்த வகையிலே இந்த ஆண்டு சுற்றுலா மற்றும் பசுமை முதலீடு என்கின்ற தொழிற்பொருளில் இந்த ஆண்டுக்கான சுற்றுலா தினம் அமைய இருக்கிறது.
මුලින්ම අප සූදානම් වෙනවා සුභාශංසන පණිවිඩයක් එක්සත් ජාතීන්ගේ ලෝක සංවිධානයේ ලෝක සංචාරක සංවිධානයේ මහලේකම්තුමන් සුරාබ් පොලොලි කශ්වලි මහත්මයාගේ සුභපැතුම් පණිවිඩයකට අප මේ සූදානම් වන්නේ. We have a message from the Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, Mr. Zurab Pololi Kashwili. So we'll now be playing that message from the Secretary General.
தொடர்ந்து ஐக்கிய நாடுகள் சபையின் உலக சுற்றுலா அமைப்பின் செயலாளர் நாயகத்தினுடைய வாழ்த்து செய்தி இடம்பெறும்.
Dear friends, it's a true pleasure to greet you on this World Tourism Day. This is a chance to reflect on the importance of our sector. Tourism is a pillar of our economies. It plays a central role in our societies and in our individual lives. And it offers solutions to some of our biggest challenges, including the climate emergency and the urgent need to shift to more sustainable economies. The power of tourism is enormous, but it's not a force that can be taken for granted. Instead, it must be supported above all with investment. This World Tourism Day will recognize the theme of tourism and green investments. The theme could not be more timely. 2023 was the hottest year on record, and extreme weather events like heat waves could become the new normal. Tourism needs to adapt. For this, we need to rethink how our sector is financed. We need to make it easier for investors of all kinds to support tourist projects with the potential to make a difference. Looking further ahead, we need investments that can empower tourism to build a better and fairer future for all. Once again, I wish you all a peaceful and inspiring World Tourism Day.
That was Secretary General of the UN WTO, Mr. Zurab Pololi Kashwili. With that, we are moving on to official words of welcome to each and every invitee here. And as you know, this event, the national event, is organized by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. මේ උත්සවයේ නිල උත්සවය සංවිධානය කරනු ලබන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා සංචාරක සංවර්ධන අධිකාරිය පැමිණ සිටි වසීල දනාම නිල වශයෙන් පිළිගන්නා මේ මොහොත.
தொடர்ந்து வரவேற்புரை இடம்பெற இருக்கிறது. அந்த வகையில் இலங்கை சுற்றுலா அபிவிருத்தி அதிகார சபையினுடைய தலைவர் திரு பிரியந்த பெர்னாண்டோ அவர்களை வரவேற்புரை நிகழ்த்த அழைக்கின்றோம்.
We'd like to now invite on to the stage the chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Mr. Priyantha Fernando.
A very good morning to all. Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Lands, Ms. Asusa, Resident Representative UNDP, distinguished invitees, and all from the 4 institutions of tourism. Welcome to World Tourism Day, and when the entire globe is celebrating World Tourism, we at a national level are celebrating here today with the participation of a cross-section of all our stakeholders. The theme for this year, tourism and green investments, is most apt. Because if you talk of Sri Lanka, yes, our tourism is definitely hinged on green tourism and sustainable concepts. Well, planned tourism in Sri Lanka goes back to over 55 years, and right throughout, at different levels, different stages, we have been working towards sustainability. We have achieved a lot, but there's a longer distance to go. And with the support of all, together, we can make it happen. When we compare Sri Lanka with other destinations in the world, we are blessed with natural assets. Our culture, our heritage, our natural assets, the sea, sun and sand, wildlife parks, nature, all that needs to be preserved, conserved, and properly managed for future generations. And there lies the overall sustainability and the contribution that tourism could make towards the economy. I'm just returning after attending the Global Tourism Economic Forum, and there was great emphasis on the South Asian region and the development that will take place based on green concepts. Everyone sees a lot of potential for the South Asian region, and it's up to all of us to help ourselves to the deserving share and place Sri Lanka on the global map. As we all know, today tourism is playing a major role and making a major contribution towards our economy. We are the second largest foreign exchange earner for the economy right now, and hopefully with the support of all stakeholders, we can make it the largest foreign exchange earner for the economy by 2027. It's a coincidence that yesterday we welcomed the 1 millionth tourist to the country. Looking at the targets that we have set for 2023, we are ahead of the targets. We have achieved 1 million tourists up to now, and also the target set of 1,550,000 will be superseded. So while I welcome all of you and thank you for gracing these occasions, let's contribute towards making tourism the best industry and the best contributor to the economy in the years ahead. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Very warm words of welcome and also lots of encouragement and lots of positive vibes created there. We say a big thank you to Mr. Priyantha Fernando, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the organizing body of this great celebration, celebrating with the World Tourism Day 2023. And with that, we have now come to the keynote address. Prime Minister Tibenne Mukhya Deshane Sandaha.
தொடர்ந்து ஐக்கிய நாடுகள் சபையின் அபிவிருத்தி நிகழ்ச்சி திட்டத்தின் இலங்கைக்கான வதிவிட பிரதிநிதி அசூசா குபோட்டா அவர்களுடைய உரை இடம்பெறும்.
Our keynote address will be delivered by the resident representative for the UNDP in Sri Lanka. Prior to her appointment in Sri Lanka, she served as a resident representative for UNDP in Bhutan from 2019 to 2022, where she led the overall operations program implementation, strategic vision setting, and also representation of the office in the country. And prior to her tenure in Bhutan, she has served in the UNDP in multiple leadership capacities as manager and head of office of UNDP in Solomon Islands, and also the UN Joint Presence Manager for UNDP, UNICEF, and also UNFPA and UN Women. Deputy Resident Representative Program, and also operations for UNDP Lao PDR, and also UNDP Maldives as well. And she's led UNDP's independent country program evaluations in multiple countries across regions, as well as thematic evaluations while working for UNDP's Independent Evaluation Office from 2008 to 2011. Her career with UNDP began as a program analyst, Sustainable Economic Empowerment Unit of UNDP in Malawi in 2002. Previously, she worked in NGOs in Boston, San Francisco, Senegal, and Lesotho. As at the International Law Institute in Washington, D.C., she was responsible for designing and also executing training programs for senior government officials and areas of international law and economic development. And a national of Japan, she holds a master's degree in international affairs in economic and political development from the School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia University, New York, USA, and a bachelor's degree from the Smith College, Northampton, USA. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are really honored to have a person of that caliber as our keynote speaker. Can we please put our hands together and welcome Madam Asuza Kubota, the UNDP Sri Lanka representative. Put your hands together, our keynote speaker.
Thank you so much. I'm deeply humbled by that extensive introduction. You can see that I have served in many countries where tourism and sustainability have been the beacon of economic growth agenda. So very humbled to hear. First of all, let me acknowledge the presence of Mr. Herat, the Secretary for the Ministry of Tourism and Lands, and chairpersons of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Sri Lanka Convention Bureau, and Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management, private sector representatives, and all the distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very humbled to be here this morning as my first official engagement in Sri Lanka when I assumed my post in January this year was with SLTDA to launch the certification program. So thank you so much once again. The topic, tourism and green investments, as already mentioned by the chair, is relevant and timely for the global community and Sri Lanka. In the post-COVID era, the tourism sector has been identified as an important engine for recovering the economic growth. So here in Sri Lanka, as the country strives to recover very rapidly from the recent economic crisis, tourism also has been identified as a key growth sector. And already some of the figures are mentioned. And once again, congratulations for marking the 1 million tourists yesterday, which is very timely for this occasion. But I have to say, despite the recent successive challenges faced by the industry in Sri Lanka, starting from the devastating Easter Sunday attacks, the COVID-19 pandemic, to the economic crisis, I have to say, really the resilience that the tourism industry has demonstrated is remarkable. The latest statistics from the central bank shows that for the first time since the pandemic, tourism earnings from the first 8 months of this year crossed the $800 million mark. So once again, really hat off to you. And while the performance is still down by 43% compared to the pre-pandemic period, the fact you are going to surpass your target this year, once again, really shows the resilience and the potential of the sector in Sri Lanka. And I was also very happy to see the Forbes has recently ranked Sri Lanka among the top 23 travel destinations globally for this year. And actually, I'm not very surprised, given the alignment between what Sri Lanka can offer and is offering and the needs of the global community that is, I must say, recovering from the years of pain. In their tourism experiences, people now seeking well-being and responsibility as opposed to pure entertainment. And undoubtedly, the sustainability agenda has gained ever greater momentum. Tourists, particularly the younger generations from Generation X, Y, Z, you name it, are deeply, deeply conscious about the long-term choices of their action and the adverse impact of tourism on environment. I found some interesting latest statistics which show a significant portion of global travelers, about 30% of them, feel guilty about flying due to the environmental impact. And 22% say they actively research public transport and bike rental options as opposed to renting a car. Additionally, 20% prefer trains over cars for longer journeys, and over 70% of the travelers now prioritize sustainability in their holiday choices, marking a 10% increase from 2021. This is gonna only grow and extends to destination selection, travel methods, accommodations, and experiences altogether during their trips. Consequently, ecotourism primarily drives the global tourism market. Last year, the sustainable tourism market was worth about $195 billion and is expected to reach about $656 billion by 2032. So the growth is really exponential. As the world embraces green thinking at this time of economic recovery efforts, the objective of the tourism sector development cannot simply about increasing the number of inbound tourists. It has to be about enhancing their experience through green lenses by promoting a responsible, eco-conscious paradigm for the sector and building a stronger eco-brand, green brand around the sustainable agenda for Sri Lanka. And the country's lush greenery, wildlife, cultural heritage, Ayurveda tradition, and wellness practices, and the diverse cuisine culture provides a solid foundation for promoting these experiences. So Sri Lanka is all well positioned at this point. However, the global data paints a rather gloomy picture that is riddled with challenges to overcome. WTO Secretary General already talked about the climate emergency. We are the hottest year since the record. So obviously tourism experience has to be adjusted. And tourism accounts for 10% of global GDP, 7% of exports, and 1 in 10 jobs worldwide. So you can see the impact of what you do in this sector. But the UNEP's, United Nations Environment Programme's research shows this growth has resulted in the increasing consumption of key resources such as energy, water, land, and materials. Not a surprise. It is estimated that by 2050, energy consumption will surge by 154%, while greenhouse gas emission would increase by 130%. Water usage in the time of water scarcity would spike by 125%, and the burden of solid waste disposal would be around 250% increase. This study also estimated that 1.3 billion tons of waste, between 4 to 8% of the global waste generation, is produced annually by tourists. The waste generated by tourism and hospitality sector globally consists about 70% of organic waste and 15% of plastic waste. This clearly shows that the pressure that the industry has placed on the planet has been significant, and this is all happening against the backdrop of, again, climate emergency and biodiversity loss. So the question now we need to reflect on and act on is how can we optimize the tourism potential while ensuring sustainability and protecting our nature? And it can be done. We believe it is possible if we understand that this is no longer about reducing the trade-offs between growing the industry and protecting the environment. We must see nature as our assets and solutions to be harnessed to attain exponential growth for our future generations. In fact, nature loss impacts economies locally, nationally, and globally. Half of global GDP is dependent on nature. The World Bank estimates that ecosystem serves collapse could result in a decline of about GDP of $2.7 trillion annually by 2030. It is estimated that 50% of global GDP is at risk from land degradation and the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. So nature loss poses a serious risk to the world's economic and financial systems. And I know many of you are already aware of this. That's why you are pushing the sustainability agenda in your operations. So maybe I'm already preaching to the convert, but these figures have to be reminded over and again. Speaking of nature assets, did you know that Sri Lanka is one of the 36 biodiversity hotspots in the world? Did you know? A biodiversity hotspot means an area with high concentration of biodiversity. It also means it has already lost more than 70% of natural habitats, so it is at risk. With its unique ecosystems and endemic flora and fauna, Sri Lanka's strength lies in its biodiversity, and should we lose it, we will lose the value of it, authenticity of it, and forever. As a rich biodiversity offers varied and exciting opportunities for tourism development, before too late, we must invest in biodiversity management, and in turn, the return on investments will be exponential and long-lasting. In Sri Lanka, most of the public sector investments in the biodiversity sector is allocated to 4 agencies that collectively receive about 80% of the total annual government budget for biodiversity management. And interestingly, all 4 of these agencies generate income from tourist-driven activities related to nature assets they manage. On average, these agencies derive a significant portion of their annual expenditures, ranging from 57% to 96% from revenue generated through tourism-related activities alone. This indicates potential for the tourism sector to explore new avenues while drifting away from traditional resource of income, and also reducing the burden on government financing. In some years, for example, the Department of Botanical Gardens has earned 2.5 times the annual government allocation for the department. Congratulations. So the biodiversity's contribution can clearly be quantified and monetized, and its significance to our economy is evident. In fact, as per the SLTDA report in 2018, out of the income earned by the public sector through tourism, more than 30% was earned through biodiversity assets. Other nature-based assets that Sri Lankan tourism experience must tap into more, I would say, are traditional medicinal plants and the Ayurvedic tradition. Latest data shows that the global wellness tourism market is projected to reach $1 trillion by the end of 2025, driven by increasing interest from tourists in areas like health, travel, and food. And I think it is reflective of the fact that the global community is healing from the years of pain and suffering under COVID. According to the Global Wellness Institute, Sri Lanka gained recognition as a top wellness destination, ranking 4th in the world in 2021. Wellness tourism in Sri Lanka could further be enhanced by leveraging the country's unique biodiversity and promoting its spice gardens and herbs to create awareness of authentic Ayurvedic treatments, healthy Sri Lankan cuisine, and its associated health benefits, and all the smiles you receive here in Sri Lanka. Profound spiritual tradition and landmarks can also be part of the holistic tourism package. And these nature-based assets can shape and drive the rebranding of Sri Lankan tourism if they are coupled with progressive and innovative green investments. As travelers increasingly prioritize responsible and eco-conscious choices, destinations that embrace green investments are likely to benefit more. Rethinking our approach in renewable energy sources, sustainable transportation options, and green building practice, those are the ways forward. Investing in sustainable transporting options, such as electric buses, e-tuk-tuks, and efficient and reliable public transportation systems can significantly reduce emissions and augment the experiences of the tourists. Also, eco-friendly and disaster-resilient hotels and resorts powered by solar and wind energy not only reduce our carbon footprint, but also empower local communities, protect natural and cultural assets, and enhance the overall experience. The digital revolution will continue to play a significant role in reshaping the tourism industry. Sri Lanka could perhaps embrace more this shift by investing in technologies such as virtual reality experiences and artificial intelligence to provide personalized and immersive experiences for visitors who do not want to leave any carbon footprint behind. While these green investments are the future for the industry, there are several challenges that hinder the transition. You probably know them already. Regulatory and policy challenges, such as inconsistent incentives and permitting procedures, can create uncertainty for potential investors. Also, limited access to affordable green financing options can shy away investors. In the tourism sector especially, they can be resistant to change from traditional practices, making it difficult to introduce sustainable initiatives. On the other hand, lack of awareness and education about the long-term benefits of green investments may lead stakeholders to prioritize short-term gains over sustainability. So we must continue to advocate. The trade-offs are no longer the options. We must push forward with the sustainability agenda. Overcoming these impediments requires collaborative efforts among government, particularly the BOI, Board of Investment, businesses, and international organizations to provide incentives, streamline regulations to attract the right investors, SDG-aligned investors, and expertise, and to raise awareness about the economic and environmental advantages of green investments. There must be an ecosystem where green investments can easily be pursued without necessarily raising the cost of responsible actions. Greenflation, greening inflation, we call that. Also, engaging young people, marginalized communities, including people living with disability in tourism development, promoting responsible tourism practices, and supporting small and medium-sized enterprises will contribute to inclusive growth and ensure an equitable distribution of benefits. Here in UNDP Sri Lanka over the years, we have been working very closely with the Ministry of Tourism and SLTDA in uplifting and ensuring sustainability of the tourism industry in Sri Lanka. Our first involvement in this sector started back in 2018, providing technical support to initiate the National Sustainable Tourism Certification Scheme under the Biodiversity Finance Initiative, in short, BioFin, and to promote tourism sector investments in biodiversity conservation and sustainable development. Under this certification scheme, I was very impressed to hear that 37 hotels have already received certification, with 200 SMEs to receive certification by the end of next year. 9 destinations have also been chosen from each province to be certified as sustainable destinations. Sigiriya, no surprise, has been selected as the inaugural destination to be developed as a sustainable tourism destination. Having worked extensively on sustainability tourism development in the Maldives and Bhutan, I'm very convinced about the economic and social impact of these certification schemes. So I very much look forward to seeing through the impact of this scheme. And destination and tour operation certification programs, also supported by BioFin, will enable tourists to select service providers with high levels of commitment towards sustainability. Since most tourist attractions in the country offer a value proposition comprised of biodiversity and culture, destination certification will look at the effectiveness of managing the existing biodiversity while allowing contributions towards the sustainable management of tourism and biodiversity for the future. Sustainable destinations also provide a great inroad to mobilizing green investments for tourism in Sri Lanka. Maybe you could think about having some bankable projects as a financing base for green bonds, blue bonds in moving forward. On other strategic tourism interventions, UNDP also provided technical support to draft the national tourism policy and conduct stakeholder consultations and validation workshop under the guidance of the Tourism Ministry. So it is our sincere hope, truly our sincere hope, that the policy will be fully adopted soon and implemented in the near future as a catalyst. While we truly appreciate the fruits of our partnership, more can be and must be done to mark sustainability, an integral part of the tourism industry offer in Sri Lanka, in close collaboration with all the other partners. This is the moment to capture. As individuals, businesses, and governments, we have a shared responsibility to promote and support green investments in tourism. UNDP stands ready to continue to join hands with the government and private sector partners to promote green investments in the sector. As we mark the halfway point to the deadline set for achieving the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals, World Tourism Day, with this year's timely theme, is another reminder of the collective commitments that we have made for the people and the planet. A few weeks back, UN convened SDG Summit, a historic one, just to be reflected of the fact that only 12% of the SDGs will be attained if we go as business usual. We have experienced a serious setback from the pandemic and the economic downturn. But we can use this crisis as an opportunity to leapfrog, bounce back very fast, and go higher. Let me close by sincerely thanking the Ministry of Tourism and Lands, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, and the organizing committee for inviting me today. Thank you so much, and happy World Tourism Day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. A big thank you to you. Arigato gozaimasu, and happy World Tourism Day to you as well. We say a big thank you to our keynote speaker, Madam Azusa Kubota, the resident representative of UNDP. For any industry to thrive in a country, we need two very paramount characteristics to be established, and that is peace and also political stability. Sri Lanka has both. We are blessed with peace and also political stability. And as Madam Kubota mentioned, Sri Lanka is positioned in a very strong way in the global map in terms of tourism, and we definitely need to maximize on that. Talking of the tourism industry, Sanchara Karmanta gana kata karnokota, Nrupita, we know that the field of art and culture, kalawa sah sanskruti, me sanchara karmante itamatma ආකර්ශනීය සාධකයක්.
கிளிஃபர்ட் கூறியது போல எங்களுடைய சுற்றுலாத்துறை என்று பார்க்கும்போது முக்கியமாக சுற்றுலா பயணிகளை கவருகின்ற ஒரு விஷயம் எங்களுடைய கலாசாரம், எங்களுடைய சமூக பின்னணிகள். எனவே அந்த சுற்றுலாத்துறையோடு இணைந்த கலாசார பின்னணியை வெளிப்படுத்தும் முகமாக தொடர்ந்து அழகிய நடனம் ஒன்று உங்களுக்காக வர காத்திருக்கிறது.
We are blessed with a great, rich cultural heritage, and that's going to be brought alive on stage in a nutshell, and this will definitely showcase as to how Sri Lanka is so richly blessed in art and culture. So we have a great performance, and that's choreographed by one of the renowned teachers and directors and mentors in Sri Lankan art, Kalashuri Dr. Channa Vijayawardena. So we have the Channa Upuli dancers coming alive with a cultural performance. Let's put our hands together for the Channa Upuli dance troupe.
Welcome to the land with a rich heritage, where a tapestry of cultures and scenic nature converge to embrace you with open arms. This is a resplendent land that is called the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. Explore the coastal beauty where pristine shores meet azure waters, and the traditional yaka dances add a mesmerizing cultural touch. amidst the lush greens of the hill country, evolves the graceful art of Kandyan dancing, the articulation of an elegant cultural heritage. Sabaragamuwa. In the picturesque landscapes of Sabaragamuwa emerges a unique dancing expression bridging the earthly and divine realms. Explore the wonders of Sri Lanka and create memories that will last a lifetime. Ayubovan.
Ayubowan to the Channa Upuli dancers as well. Let's put our hands together and say thank you and Ayubowan to the Channa Upuli dancers. You know, Sri Lanka is a great location in terms of tourism, and there are many investment opportunities. So just having investment opportunities is not good enough. It has to be investor friendly. How friendly is Sri Lanka for an investor to be interested in investment and also make an investment or do an investment? හොඳයි. ආයෝජකයන් සඳහා අපරාධේ සංචාරක කර්මාන්තය එහෙම නැත්නම් සංචාරක ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ ආයෝජකයන් විදේශීය ආයෝජකයන් සඳහා ලබා දෙන අවස්ථා ඒ වගේම ඔවුන් දිරිගන්වන්නේ කෙසේ? So it's a very encouraging to note that we have an investor relations unit, or what is known as IRU.
நிச்சயமாக இலங்கை சுற்றுலா அதிகார சபையிலே ஏராளமான பிரிவுகள் இருக்கிறது. ஒவ்வொரு பிரிவுகளும் தங்களுக்கென்று தனியான வேலைகளை ஏராளமாக கொண்டிருக்கின்ற போது இலங்கை சுற்றுலா அபிவிருத்தி அதிகார சபையுடைய முதலீட்டாளர் உறவுகள் மற்றும் முதலீட்டாளர் உறவுகள் பிரிவு ஒரு முக்கியமான பிரிவு. என்று சொன்னால் சுற்றுலாத்துறைக்கு எங்களுக்கு தேவை முதலீடு. முதலீட்டாளர்களை நாட்டுக்குள் நாங்கள் உள்வாங்க வேண்டும். அப்படியான முதலீட்டாளர்களுடைய கனவுகளை நனவாக்குவதோடு அவர்களை ஊக்குவிப்பது இந்த பிரிவு. எனவே இந்த பிரிவு தொடர்பான ஒரு காணொளி தொடர்ந்து உங்களுக்காக வர காத்திருக்கிறது.
The IRU, or the Investor Relations Unit, is the centralized facilitation and promotion center established within SLTDA to assist potential tourism investors interested in investing in Sri Lankan tourism. The IRU is a one-stop location and point of contact for investors seeking information or also assistance on tourism investments. Specialized staff of the IRU are in collaboration with all projects approving government agencies to help investors to make their investment project a reality. So I request you now to have a look at the screen.
Invest in blue oceans, coastal waters and blue skies. Invest in clean energy, adventure, momentum, and exciting opportunity. Invest in history culture and tradition. Invest in ancient healing heritage. Invest in the most exciting wildlife safari destinations, the world's most exclusive tea and cuisine. Invest in sustainable luxury. Invest in tropical architecture. Invest in mastery,
World-class hospitality education.
artistry. Invest in determination, untapped potential. Invest in ambition, passion, vision. Invest in boundless ingenuity. Invest in innovation. Invest in tomorrow. Invest in Tourism Sri Lanka.
Many investment opportunities. සංචාරක ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ ආයෝජකයෙකුට ලැබෙනා වූ දිරිගැන්වීම ඒ ගැන තව ටිකක් පුළුල් අපි කතා කරන්නයි මේ සූදානම් නිරූපිතා.
தொடர்ந்து இலங்கை சுற்றுலா அபிவிருத்தி அதிகார சபையின் முதலீட்டாளர் உறவுகள் பிரிவினுடைய பிரதி பணிப்பாளனால் காட்சிப்படுத்தல் ஒன்று இடம்பெற இருக்கிறது.
We're now going to invite the Deputy Director, Investor Relations Unit of SLTDA, Madam Bhagya Mahavitanage, on stage for a brief presentation. Let's put our hands together and welcome Madam Bhagya Mahavitanage.
Hi, everyone, and good morning to all of you. Mr. Herath, Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism and Lands, Chairman of SLTD and all the sister organizations under the Ministry of Tourism, all the senior officials of the four organizations, and all the officials from the public sector organizations partnering tourism development and management, representatives from all the donor agencies, Madam Kubota, and all of you, and all the stakeholders from various organizations, well-wishers from the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I take this as an opportunity and a privilege to be on this stage representing the Investor Relations Unit of SLTDA to talk about the investments that we have handled since 2010. We established this unit at the SLTDA in late 2010 with the objective of creating a pleasant environment for the investors who are investing in the tourism sector in Sri Lanka. We have experience in handling more than 1,100 projects since then, and we are well aware of the challenges, bottlenecks, difficulties the investors go through in this sector in Sri Lanka. We have made a continuous effort to streamline the services that we provide to the tourism investors by looking at ourselves as well as working with the partnering agencies, all the government agencies. We appreciate the support that we received from the USAID. Under several projects, they assisted technically to improve the entire process. By doing that, we are happy to announce that we have managed to have a better atmosphere for the tourism sector investments in the country. So, within the given time, I would like to give an overview of the global investment scenario as well as the local tourism investment scenario. Also, the importance of green investments to a country like Sri Lanka, and how and why we should encourage the green investments in the country. And also, we have selected just one case study out of 1,000-odd projects that we have received since 2010. And also, we will give an introduction about the initiatives we have already taken to improve and also to mention about the preparedness that we have to attract green investments to the country. So, as we all know, tourism accounted about 4% of the global global economy. We all know that it came down to almost to a ground zero during the crisis situations. It's the same in the country, in Sri Lanka. And it is also known that investments plays an important role in the recovery of the global tourism. So by knowing this, we know that it's important that we as the government organizations, together with all the partnering government agencies, together with all the stakeholders in the industry, we have to work together to create a better environment to support being flexible and to support the investors who are coming into the country for investments. Also, we know that the sector fosters peace through cross-cultural understanding and create opportunities for the communities. And also, on the other hand, we know that the sector is highly vulnerable to climate change. So we all are facing the biggest challenge of the era, that is climate change. And with that, the resulting sustainability imperative. With the experience that we have as the staff of IRU, knowing the difficulties the investors had to go through during the past couple of years, we feel, and I'm sure the most of the industry stakeholders, they feel that sustainability is kind of a burden on them. That's why we all should get together and work together and support ourselves as a sector to come back with green investments. And also, the demand that we have for green investment itself creates a lot of opportunities, a lot of potential for investments. We can see why green investments are important to the Sri Lanka tourism. We know that we faced and we went through a civil war that lasted for more than 30 years. It's true that we have passed 1.5 decades after finishing the war, but still certain negative impacts still haunting us. So that it's very important to have a cross-cultural understanding and to have peace established. So for that, these investments can play a big role. Also, being an island destination, Sri Lanka has a very sensitive ecosystem, so that it's important, whatever the developments that we do for tourism, we have to do it cautiously. We have to preserve the sensitivity of our ecosystem. Also, we are a nation with a rich heritage, not only the tangible heritage with 7 UNESCO declared heritage sites and thousands of similar sites spread across the country. Also, we have intangible heritage. We have our own values. We have a lot to share with the world. So with that, we need to preserve while entertaining all developments and new projects to the sector. And it is also important to develop required tourism infrastructure in the country to cater to the new demand. Also, more than anything else, we have the commitment to achieve the targets laid down by SDGs and INDCs. So that's why we should give our fullest effort to entertain the green investment to the country. With that, I would like to take you to the case study we have selected. It's a project which was proposed to the Diulapiti area in the Gampaha district. This is a remarkable and a challenging project that we handled at IRU. A group of investors from various disciplines, they have taken the initiative to develop this project as a floating cabanas, floating resort, using a few abandoned clay mining pits in the area. These abandoned clay mining pits have been a menace to that area with mosquito breeding, being a danger to human lives and animal lives. So these investors, what they have done is they have combined all those abandoned pits into one artificial lake with proper approvals and guidance from relevant government agencies. They have beautifully created a floating resort. So it becomes an environmental rehabilitation project for the tourism sector. The bank of that lake has been used for organic agriculture. Actually, I was trying to find a picture before the resort was built, but I couldn't. But you can see the beauty of the project as we see today. It's nearly to start their operations. It has created 150 direct jobs and more than 500 indirect jobs. Out of the 150 direct jobs, 30% of them are for female employees from the area. They haven't given any opportunities for the outsiders, but they have given employment opportunities for the people of the area. And also they have used very light structures, of course, as a floating cabana project. And they have used the creepers, and they have tried to merge the product with the nature, using as much as possible natural lighting and all other green building concepts. And also the organic agro activities provides a nice experience to the tourists visiting that resort, and also it provides the harvest to the resort requirement, food requirement. And also the freshwater fish that they harvest from the lake itself is used for the use of the resort. Yeah, so that's a small case study. I think this is just one project, but there are so many projects that we have received with a lot of good environmental or sustainability initiatives. So with all we respect all those initiatives, and we are trying to encourage more and more similar projects to Sri Lanka. Also, we have made a few attempts to have a proper, being the centralized facilitation center for the tourism investments. We have made an effort to streamline the entire approval process during the past 2.5 years. So the streamlined joint approval mechanism with a stronger collaboration with all the government agencies, now we are in a position to serve better the investors in the tourism sector. Also, our mechanism ensures the compliance with all the guidelines, criteria, and the regulatory framework that was set up by all the government agencies, which is very important for the preservation or the conservation of the sensitive ecosystems and the social sensitivity of the tourism of the country. And also all the approval processes are facilitated by us so that we make sure that everything goes smoothly, especially the environmental environmental processes, which takes time. So we always work very closely with the investors, making them understand that time is not only the factor, but doing the thing right is very important. So every time, most of the investors, they complain about the time taken for a project approval. Yes, it matters, but still, going through the right procedure is also important to conserve the sensitive environments, to preserve our values, culture in our country. We have taken very important initiatives, two very important initiatives. Again, the credit should go to the USAID and their teams. We have done a design guideline together with the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects, which provides a clear criteria and how to comply with all the regulatory requirements of the other government agencies. So this is available together with a tool, Excel sheet. It's an Excel sheet. It's a tool the professionals can use when designing their projects. So it's on our website. It's available. Hard copies are also available with us for the investors. And also going forward, under the USAID IPOP project, a guideline is prepared for the sustainability of the tourism sector. The sustainable guideline will first come out as a brochure, but it will be an evolving document that will be developed in time to come. So the author is also here. We are happy to, we would like to thank for these valuable compilations for the sector. Yeah, another key initiative which we have taken as an island destination, we have experienced and we have observed that unwanted or ad hoc developments are happening along the coastal belt of this country. But it is very important to preserve or to have the best landscape suitable for the tourism sector along the coastal belt of this country. So we have done a technical study with the expertise of the University of Moratuwa, Faculty of Architecture. We have got the fullest support from the Coast Conservation and Coastal Resource Management Department and the Urban Development Authority for this initiative. So we have done an intensive technical study and identified the requirements, and now we have come up with recommendation and the final report of this, which will be gazetted soon as a UDA regulation, so that the building heights will be regulated, and there are other certain important factors with the disaster management mechanisms. So everything will be given the proper attention, and the future developments along the coastal belt will have to be abide by these regulations. Yeah, so there are a few more things that we are hoping to do. There are many important information available in with different government agencies. They have their digital maps, they have their technical findings here and there, but they are not compiled to one place, and it's not available for the investor. It's a shortcoming at the moment. So in future, we have the plan to get all those information into one platform. We have all the government agencies, they have agreed verbally. We are in dialogue, continuous dialogue with them to get them all into one place and make them available in simple form to all the investors, so that they themselves can decide where their investments or the projects should take place. And also a stronger collaboration with government agencies provide a required guidance in single voice, which is very important. We have signed MOUs with 10 government agencies, and we are working with 44 government agencies right now. at the central government level as well as regional level. We have given training for all the officers in the regional level as well. So we have a very, very healthy collaboration with them. So we are going forward together. All development projects in the tourism sector are suggested to be routed through IRU. The Gazette notification we are trying to get as soon as possible, because the tourism projects need guidance. They need guidance to be greener. So that's why we want the framework policies guidelines to be respected and taken through a proper process to get the approvals. And on the other hand, the streamlined process of IRU itself minimize the carbon footprint, because it's a joint site inspection, joint meetings, so that we need not to, it was not the case previously. The investors had to go several times to the site. Different agencies were having so many meetings to give approval for a single project. It's not the case right now. So going forward, a sustainability framework is proposed, which will provide, with a proper incentive scheme, which will provide a proper framework to work within for the investors in the tourism sector. So the way forward, we are hoping to have a good framework for the green investments in the future, effective facilitation mechanism with proper linkages. We, the IRU team, is very small, but we are stronger with all the collaborations with professional bodies, all the government agencies. So we have the expertise. We are growing stronger with increased collaborations and expertise. And we are hoping to develop a new ecosystem for tourism investment, focusing on green investments with a cleared land bank with cleared ownerships and cleared the land should be cleared and ready for investments. And also, we are hoping to have an inventory of professional service suppliers. Likewise, with all the information gathered together, everything set on in one place, and also the investment case management system we are hoping to have by the end of next year. So these are this is the ecosystem that we are hoping to create for the sector. And also a new incentive scheme is required to attract investments. I think the dialogues are taking place at the higher level right now, at the interministerial level. So hoping that we'll be able to get a good incentive scheme prepared. And also we are formulating a new investment promotion strategy targeting green investments. Right now, so far, we haven't done much promotions focusing on tourism investment other than the general investment promotions done by BOI. But we, in the future, we are hoping to focus and start promoting investment, targeting right investors. So this is the preparedness of the investor relations of Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. We are not perfect yet. We have come to a certain extent. We have improved ourselves. We are hoping to go forward with all your support. We need your support to go forward to make this industry, all new developments, green. Thanks.
Fantastic stuff there. Many congratulations to IRU. Come on, put your hands together louder. Great framework there. We say a big thank you to Madam Bahagya Mahavitanaki, Deputy Director of IRU of SLTDA. And we really know, and we are very convinced that tourists and also investors are not attracted to concrete jungles, but they are attracted to nature. They're attracted to more and more sustainable eco projects, biodiversity, and that's exactly how IRU has aligned themselves in that concept. So we are definitely sure that sky is the limit for Sri Lanka in terms of tourism. Nirupita, බඩගින්නක් එම දැනෙන්නේ නැද්ද?
ටිකක් තියෙනවා.
ටිකක් තියෙනවා. right. so බඩගින්නක් දැනෙනකොට මොනවා හරි කන්න ඕනනේ. කන්න ඕන නම් මොකද කරන්නේ? කන්න ඕන නම් කෑම හදා ගන්න ඕන. කෑම උයා ගන්න. we need to cook. If cook or buy something to eat when we are hungry. So if you're going to cook, we need preparation plan or a recipe, okay? So if you have a good recipe, you can end up preparing yourself a nice meal. So talking of recipes, Sri Lanka is very popular and renowned for cuisine, Sri Lankan food. So this is a great collaboration between the Australian government-funded Skills for Inclusive Growth Project, or called S4IG, and also the government of Sri Lanka, and also the Chefs Guild of Sri Lanka. Entities තුනේ සහයෝගය යටතේ බොහොම අපූර්ව නිර්මාණයක් අපි එළි දක්වන්නයි මේ සූදානම්.
நிச்சயமாக எல்லோருக்குமே பிடிச்ச ஒரு விஷயம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி சொன்னால் சாப்பாடு அப்படின்னு சொல்லலாம். எத்தனை தமிழாக்கள் இங்கே இருக்கிறீங்களோ தெரியாது, பட் எங்களோட சாப்பாடுகளுக்கு, எங்களுடைய பாரம்பரிய உணவுகளுக்கு என்று சொல்லி ஒரு மதிப்பு இருக்குது. சுற்றுலா பயணிகள் அதிகமாக இலங்கைக்கு வந்து விரும்புகின்ற ஒரு விஷயங்கள்ல ஒன்று இந்த உணவு அப்படி என்று சொல்லலாம். எனவே தொடர்ந்து உங்களுக்காக வர இருப்பது S4IGயால் பாரம்பரிய உணவு செயல்முறை தொடர்பான டிஜிட்டல் பிரதி ஒன்று வெளியிடப்பட இருக்கிறது. எனவே இந்த நிகழ்வினை நெறிப்படுத்துவதற்காக கூட்டு முகர்வாண்மை நிபுணர் பெஞ்சமின் சின்னத்துரை மற்றும் கூட்டு நிகழ்ச்சி நிபுணர் நிமனி தலுவத் ஆகியோரை அழைத்திருக்கிறோம்.
ரொம்ப பசிது, சின்ன பசிது.
ரொம்ப பசிக்குது.
ரொம்ப பசி. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready for the launching of a digital version. A digital version of what is this version? Of a recipe book. Recipe book, yummy, yummy. I'm sure it's going to be. It's called Authentic and Contemporary Recipes of Sri Lanka by Skills for Inclusive Growth, or S4IG. So we're going to see this book launched, and I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of explanation as well. And this will be done by two people from S4IG, namely Mr. Benjamin Sinadure, the agency partnership specialist, and also Madam Nipuni Daluat, the program partnerships specialist. Let's put our hands together and welcome them on stage.
Thank you very much, guys, for the great introduction given by S4IG. So good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are from Skills for Inclusive Growth Program, S4IG, a tourism development partnering program, work closely with SLTDA. And today I have with me on stage Mr. Benjamin, the agency partnership specialist for S4IG.
Thank you, Nipuni. She is Nipuni Daluwata, our program partnership specialist. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are now about to embark on an exciting culinary journey together. Thank you, Clifford, for such a wonderful introduction. We are thrilled to be your host for this momentous occasion as we launch our digital cookbook that celebrates the rich tapestry of Sri Lanka's culinary heritage.
Yeah, Benjamin. So today on the 27th September, we are celebrating the World Tourism Day. The talent and the vibrant youth of Sri Lanka, the future chefs of the country, with incredible flavors that define our nation. Through this digital cookbook, we will be showcasing 40 delectable dishes that are meticulously developed and prepared by the young students who are studying the professional cookery course in different vocational training institutes across the country. And especially, these youth are the exceptional contestants of the Supreme Chef Youth Edition, a renowned culinary reality TV show.
Let me give a brief. Now, let us take a moment to introduce this remarkable cookbook. This culinary masterpiece was crafted using the skills and creativity of the top 20 finalists. Remember, top 20 finalists of Supreme Chef Youth Edition, a culinary reality show that brought together over 1,500 talented trainees from various hospitality vocational training institutes. To make this cookbook even more appealing and marketable, these finalists worked closely together with master trainers from Chef Guild of Lanka, the professional body representing Sri Lankan chefs. So I would like to invite you to so to see the video, how it has been proceeded with. Thank you. Let's have the video.
Just how good, healthy and varied is Sri Lankan food? We Sri Lankans know it is good. Many people around the world know it is good. But not everyone who visits Sri Lanka has a consistently good experience with our food. It's the general disinterest Sri Lankans have in flavor. For a country that has so much natural beauty, a very decent tourism infrastructure and warm, super friendly people, you'd expect some local fare which would excite tourists, but nah, never seen a people so dispassionate about food.
So the journalist's name was Dan Keong. He posted this on the 7th of July, which was last month.
That's what food is. Food is a story. You want the story, you want passion. This cuisine is so vast, except for the tourist who's come all the way here and has heard that Sri Lankan food is amazing.
Yeah, so it depends now. But then again, one area that I would really agree with him is we also have a duty to promote. We have not really promoted Sri Lankan cuisine as it should be. Being the chairman of Chef Skill, we have really tried hard to promote local cuisine.
Well, we want to put that right. We want everyone to know how good, healthy and varied Sri Lankan food is. The Digital Cookbook, 40 authentic Sri Lankan dishes by the youth of Sri Lanka. A collaboration between youth from the Supreme Chef reality TV show and mentored by chefs from the Chefs Guild of Lanka. Supported by the governments of Sri Lanka and Australia via the Skills for Inclusive Growth program. An interactive book that contains recipes, cooking methods, nutritional benefits, and cultural significance of each dish. And beautiful video which not only shows the dishes being made by youth, but also gives the viewer geographic context, the places they come from. There is so much potential for a book like this. Let's tell the world how passionate we are about food. Let's put Sri Lanka firmly on the world culinary map where it belongs.
Thank you very much. So as you all have seen in the promotional video that this 40 recipe book not only captures the authenticity of Sri Lankan cuisine, but also it takes you on a journey through the diverse and vibrant local flavors that our beautiful island has to offer. And here's the exciting part. So in this book, each and every recipe includes a QR code, and when you scan this QR code from your phone, you will be directed to a recipe video that how this recipe is being made of, which you can allow to master the art of cooking of this exquisite cuisine right in your own kitchen.
Thank you, Nipuni. So without any further ado, let's prepare to launch this culinary masterpiece. In just a moment, we will be calling our esteemed dignitaries on stage, and then they will be receiving the card copies from our colleagues. And the QR code will be revealed for all of you to scan and access this delightful cookbook. So get ready to embark on a journey of flavors, inspirations, and the authentic taste of Sri Lanka.
Yes, Benjamin. So in order to handing over the cookbook officially, I would like to call upon the stage Mr. Stephen, Skill Advisor of Skills for Inclusive Growth Program, and Ms. Natalie Pearson to accompany Stephen. Can we have them on stage, please? So the official handing over ceremony will be done by them, and I would like to respectfully invite Mr. Buanaka Herat, Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Lands. Sir, you will be the first one to have our digital cookbook, which is kind of a printed version today. We'll be handing over to you. Thank you very much, Secretary. And can we have on stage Mr. Priyantha Fernando, Chairman, Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority also? And I finally respectfully invite Madam Asusa Kubota, Resident Representative of UNDP. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, distinguished guests. But that's not all. We have a special treat for you, and we will be now showcasing the QR code. Yes, Benjamin?
Yes, we are welcoming private and government partners to share this book with your esteemed shareholders. Imagine having these tantalizing recipes at your fingertips, ready to be served and shared with your loved ones every day. For example, if you take Sri Lankan Airlines, they can use this cookbook in every seat pocket, allowing to promote our food culture to gastronomy tourists from around the world. Where passengers can also purchase a copy of this cookbook on board if you wish to take the flavors of Sri Lanka back home. So, whether you are a food enthusiast, a hotelier looking to add a touch of local authenticity to your establishment, or an international visitor seeking a unique souvenir from your Sri Lankan journey, this cookbook is for you. We would love to hear from you the ways and means you are planning to come on board with us.
Yeah, so thank you for being a part of this exciting event with S4RG, and let's celebrate the fusion of tourism and green investment through the love of food. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You know, just a little while ago, we were kind of hungry. Now we are really hungry. Thank you very much, Benjamin and Nipuri. Put your hands together. And also, let's put our hands together for the authentic and contemporary recipes of Sri Lanka by Skills for Inclusive Growth. And, well, the good thing is that you can carry that entire set of recipes in your smart device, because you just scan the QR code and there you go. How many? 40 recipes. 40 recipes in your smart device, and yes, good luck, bon appetit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so with that, we are moving on to another very important item in the agenda. But before we get to that, we have, in fact, a little bit of preparation. But before all that, we're going to have a nice video that talks of something great. This 3 great entities called People, Planet, and Prosperity. Let's have a look at the screen. So with that feast for your eyes, we're going to focus more in depth on our theme, tourism and green investments. Sanchara Karmante Saha Harita Ayojane api temawa. Egana api tawa durata kata karannai me sudanama, and we are getting ready for a panel discussion.
நிச்சயமாக இன்றைய சுற்றுலா தினத்தினுடைய தொனிப்பொருளாக சுற்றுலா மற்றும் பசுமை முதலீடு என்கின்ற தொனிப்பொருளை இந்த ஆண்டுக்கான சுற்றுலா தினம் தாங்கி வருகிறது. பசுமை முதலீடு எதிலே? மக்களிலாக இருக்கலாம், சூழலிலாக இருக்கலாம், அல்லது செழிப்பிலாக இருக்கலாம். எனவே இந்த தொனிப்பொருள் தொடர்பான குழு கலந்துரையாடல் ஒன்று தொடர்ந்து இடம்பெற இருக்கின்றது.
Right, so I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting and very informative as we get ourselves ready for this panel discussion titled On Tourism and Green Investments. We'll be shortly inviting our moderator who will be taking over proceedings. Our moderator starts his career as a banker and later holding senior management positions in the corporate sector in Sri Lanka and also UK, UAE, Bangladesh and India as well, and also gaining a sound knowledge about business dynamics in local and international business environments. He was in fact instrumental in setting up the workplace-based skills development program or skills for inclusive growth for the tourist sector at FCCISL under the patronage of the Australian Aid and the focal point for Sun Business Network initiated by the World Food Programme in Colombo. And he was also the focal point for Together We Can, or TWC, gender-based action program initiated by the International Finance Corporation to help female cadre mitigate the COVID-19 ill effects. He was also the focal point of FCCISL at the National Trade Facilitation Committee, co-chaired by the Sri Lanka Customs and Department of Commerce of Sri Lanka. He was also the member of the EU ITC working group on the TARDE policy. He also acted as the chief resource person at a capacity development program for regional chambers on leadership, governance and sustainability conducted by EU Sri Lanka trade-related assistance in collaboration with International Trade Center in Geneva. So currently, the Executive Secretary of the Asia Pacific Trade Agreement Chamber of Commerce and Industry, President of the Professional Business Coaching Association, and also the former Secretary General and CEO, Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry of Sri Lanka, that's the FCCISL. So he is going to be our moderator. So we can now invite him on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please welcome on stage Mr. Ajit D. Pereira, our moderator.
Good morning to all of you. A warm welcome to the panel discussion. And let me call upon, there are 4 panelists today to come to the stage. I would like to invite Mr. Prasanjit Vijayatilaka, Executive Director, Investment Promotions at BOI. Can you have? And Mrs. Sushara Vaidyasagara, the Head of Investment Banking at the Commercial Bank Ceylon PLC. Mr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan, Executive Vice President at John Keels Holding PLC. Also, Mr. Shiranta Pires, Chairman of Sleetum. Thank you very much once again. In fact, this is a very tough schedule the organizers have given us. Within 1 hour, we have to finish off. So, I mean, this very appropriate theme like that, it's basically a tough job, but I'm sure my experience, the members of the panel, I'm sure that they should be able to live up to expectations, I'm sure with their experience and exposure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And also I must the organizers have paid a glowing introduction about me. So it's a bit of a challenge for me to live up to expectations as well. But however, we are happy to be here, and let me start it. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate the tourism and green investments on a very appropriate platform. So this is, of course, nothing new, but still it creates a lot of interest and enthusiasm in any country. The reason why, when we are talking about the green investments, that leads to one particular point that would help world create the green economy. And once again, the green economy is not something new, but it creates a lot of enthusiasm, and it draws the attention from all over the world. The green economy. Why we need the green economy? I'm sure the speakers who came here before had given you some statistics and also reasons. But as a preamble to the discussion, I would also like to add few things to that. I think it's very pertinent, rather than asking why we need a green economy, it's better to say what happens to the world if we do not go for the green economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the research done by experts and various institutes say the unchecked climate change will cost $178 trillion US, the worth, the damages to the world economy, and that is US dollars 178 trillion globally over the next 50 years. And also UNESCOP reports say that would also that would push an estimated additional 130 million people into the extreme poverty. And also Asia Pacific would be the one of the hardest hit regions in the world. So I think this is where the world is heading for if we are not taking the effective steps in creating the green economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sri Lanka tourism is basically working on reaching these targets, and especially, and also there is another reason why we have to be very mindful of our targets. One is all the countries in 2015 signed an agreement, it's called the Paris Agreement, which is a legally binding document. So all the countries who are signatories are basically have to achieve certain targets by year 2030 or by year 2025. So with this introduction, I would like to invite Mr. Prasanjit Vijayatilaka, who is the Executive Director at Investor Promotions at BOI, who is seated next to me. And as you know, Prasanjit, Sri Lanka has taken certain decisions to green the economy, like the policy decisions not to increase further energy capacity through the coal power, and also had decided to phase out the fossil fuel subsidies gradually. And also, we want to achieve the 70% of renewable energy situation for electricity generation by 2030. And even the Honorable President Ranil Wickremesinghe has suggested to COP27 to set up an international climate change university. So these are the happenings here. So in this transformation towards the new green economy, it also creates actually a lot of new the business opportunities. You are representing the premier investment agency in Sri Lanka, and we would like to know from you and what is the current status, and also what policy you would love to see in the political establishments, and about the green investments, because the investments are very particular, that we have to be careful of this matter, because no investments coming, actually our chances of reaching the targets would be very tough. So Prasanjit, what you can do about this?
Thanks, Ajit. It's a bit of a loaded question. But before I get there, let me just try and present some context, because to talk about policy, we'll have to consider the context that the policy is being, that the policy will address, right? And so we'll take a bit of a helicopter view here because of the time constraint. So, I mean, from a tourism perspective, if you're looking at Sri Lanka, one of our greatest attributes or organic strengths is the biodiversity, and the number of different natural elements that Sri Lanka offers by way of a tourist experience or a leisure experience. And all of this is impacted by nature. And therefore, that's where I would tie in the climate change perspective to this particular audience, or to this event. But having said that, overall, from a policy perspective, so Sri Lanka, I mean, Excellency the President, I think it was last November that they launched the Climate Prosperity Plan. Yeah? And that you actually mentioned some of the initiatives or some of the achievables or goals therein. So I think if you break it up into, let's say, longer term and near term goals, I think the long term ones are similar to, I mean, it echoes some of the Paris Agreement mandates, like the 1.5 degrees global warming I think there's a very ambitious one where for Sri Lanka to be carbon zero by the time we reach developed nation status. So those are, a bit further down the horizon. Closer to home are the ones, or like closer to where we are right now. Some of those goals like the renewable energy contribution and tying that to investment. So basically, depending on who you ask, we are at about 35 to 40% contribution to the national grid in terms of renewable energy. So obviously there's headroom there for about that 30% represents headroom over the next 7 years, 6 years, directly linked to that goal. And then there's directly an investment piece linked to that goal. Now, again, because of the paucity of time, I can't, go into this as in-depth as I would like. But in terms of policy, while we seem to have our sights set correctly, implementing that policy, there are certain challenges. And that is actually, I would say, it's down to getting the buy-in of all necessary agencies that are tasked with implementing policies like this. So especially on the energy side, we do see certain challenges, but we believe those challenges are being addressed systematically. What we need to be conscious is, very much like this session, time is ticking. So if we are to meet some of these goals, we do need to, be very conscious of the fact that it's only a limited window of time that we have to implement all of this. And to do that, all stakeholders have to have equal and committed buy-in. That being said, there are some of I think the climate change is also, I would consider it a near-term goal. And how this then impacts, let's say, the BOI, that can be articulated maybe 3 verticals, I would say. So you get our zones, then you get energy as a factor cost of production, and then the promotion piece. I'll keep the promotion piece for last because that's more what I do. But from the zones perspective, so we are looking at how we can make our zones more eco-friendly. We're trying to move away from what you call, make and dispose or make and discard to something more sustainable. We are conscious of our energy footprint. So I'm now getting into the energy vertical side as well. So as far back as 2018, we've been encouraging BOI enterprises to go solar wherever possible. And then on the promotion piece, so mostly when you say promotion, FDI and green concept, most people just assume it's only renewable energy. There's a lot of other sectors and sub-sectors that come into play. So for starters, we have an SDG investor map jointly developed, which is featured and accessible on our web page. But that's, apart from that, there are a lot of different ways. See, if you look at it, we account for about 80+% of Sri Lanka's industrial exports. Around 25%, give or take, of our merchandise exports go to the European Union. The European Union has some very, very strong expectations when it comes to climate footprint. And these expectations, the enforcing of these expectations has increased with time. So now if we are to keep our exporters future ready, we need to ensure that we are giving them the best chances in terms of qualifying for these climate footprint-based subsidies and so on, right? So it's all part of a bigger picture. And like I said, it's a broad question. I hope I've given you some indication of where our perspective is on.
Yes.
And yeah.
Thank you, and we'll come to the next point, the next question at the second round. And Sushara, I think the next I would like to ask you this question direct. Sri Lankan banking industry is basically a very security-minded. You know, it's not that easy for the bankers. There can be reasons, but when in that context, when the Sri Lankan banks are very highly security-minded, the banking sector we have, and what are the prospects for the financial institutions for providing capital and expertise for green investments in the country?
Yes, firstly, let me thank the SLTDA for the invite of the Sri Lanka Banking Association to be presented here. Yeah, so actually, yes, certainly. I mean, the bankers have a vital role to play in the development of the green initiatives that we are looking at. And there are many activities that the bankers can do in terms of financing, as well as giving their expertise to the industry to move forward in this space. If we take, for instance, there's been a lot of development in the sustainable space in Sri Lanka. And I think one of the main documents that did come out was the Sustainability Roadmap, which is, I think, came out in 2019, which is a very important document that has kind of set out the pace as to how we're going to achieve the Paris commitments. In that context, we have also come up with the CBSL actually launched the Green Financing Taxonomy last year. So this is a very important document for reference. And actually, in the preparation of this Green Financing Taxonomy, there were lots of stakeholder consultations. And the bankers were one key part in this stakeholder consultation. So taking that into account, I think in moving through the activities that are lined up in the roadmap, the bankers will be a key player in trying to frame certain policies and giving our input into going forward on those lines. So I think that is where one of our expertise would definitely come into play and has already come into play. So talking of, I think actually the keynote speaker spoke of the opportunities that are available in greening our tourism industry, from e-mobility to the green building concepts, the hotel building concepts, the energy saving opportunities that are there. So those are all very clearly articulated and reflected in this Green Financing Taxonomy that was produced last year. Anyway, it's not a static document. It will keep evolving. It will keep being reviewed, and good practices, good methods, any changes that are necessary to be brought in will have to be brought in, and as has been seen in the other jurisdictions and other countries as well, it's a ever-evolving subject. So those consultations will go on.
So in order to finance these activities, the banks have been in green financing for many years and have been doing a lot of work in this space. All the banks are involved in green financing, and one of the main ways in which we finance green projects is through project financing activities. And when you talk about project finance, we talk about ring fencing some cash flows and making use of that cash flow so that we have limited recourse, in fact, to the originator or the sponsors. So that is the way in which that is financed. And in addition to that, a single bank may not be able to finance some of these large-scale developments. So what the banks have seen and has been doing in the past is where they have got into syndications, where multiple banks have participated in financing this activity. And another activity or another way of financing is refinance activities. And refinance has been seen as one of the key impetus that was created for the renewable energy industry. And actually it was really a good way in which you saw a massive growth in the renewable energy industry, and it was especially due to these refinance loans that were available in the country. So because we are able to get in those funds, pass on that benefit to the developers at concessionary rates. So those are some of the ways in which we have financing structures. And in addition to that, there are other investment instruments like the green bonds, the equity or investments that could be facilitated through the investment banks of the banking sector. And that is one of the other elements that could be brought in. And in addition to that, actually the bankers provide a lot of services to especially the SME-oriented organizations where certain education and support is given in feasibility studies and things like that as well. So those activities and those will always be very much appreciated by the SMEs, and actually you come up with a better project than would have been otherwise available. So those are some of the things that I could add to how the banks could contribute.
Okay, I would come to you, I'll come back to you on certain questions I would like to ask you from. And my next question goes to Mr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan, Executive Vice President of John Keys Holding. Ramesh, you are the Chief Information Officer, and it's a top post. And you handle the information technology, which is key for the service delivery. And what can you a little bit explain about your company's corporate goal, the goals in greening the industry, and how it could help you and help your company set standards for the industry?
Good morning, everyone, and wish all of you a happy World Tourism Day. As you know, John Keys had been one of the early signatories to UN Sustainable Development Goals as it got launched. And we were reporting on triple bottom line on GRI standards as well. So we hold sustainability at the highest echelons in terms of a part and parcel of our corporate culture. So if you just kind of look at overall, hospitality obviously is an integral part of our business, but if you look at in terms of sustainability for us, significantly means diversity and inclusion, and also community development, and also ensuring that whatever we do has the least impact in terms of environmental, social, and gives everyone an inclusive growth, right? So if you really look at from that point of view, from a CIO's role, the biggest challenge for us is to build an inclusive platform where we can get people to participate, be it employees, be it partners, customers, suppliers. So that ecosystem, building that so-called ecosystem is key for us. So what we've done since 2010, we were one of the first to move to cloud as a kind of a way of doing business. So which has enabled us to actually create communities across. Now today, if you look at, today our supermarkets are supplied by farmers to whom we have given technology in terms of IoT to do drip irrigation, right? Organic farming. So that finds its way through the Kiel supermarkets to the hotels. So we have communities around the hotels which are supplying to the hotels, right? And we've looked at now in terms of also looking at waste management, circular economy. How do you reuse, how do you recycle, how do you reproduce things in the system, right? So a lot of the stuff is ultimately about analyzing your data points, right? If we want to make better decisions, do we have critical data that which brings to bear in terms of making better decisions? So that's where the lot of automation today, whether be it intelligent buildings, intelligent hotels, looking at supply chain, cold chains, all of that we are looking at in terms of looking at the right information being access to the right person so that you could optimally manage those. Now, even at Key supermarkets, we don't throw food away, right? We give it to at least the local community. So we're looking at initiatives where waste is managed and it's repurposed or it's beneficial to someone in terms of the economic context. Let me park myself there and maybe come back.
Okay, thank you very much, Shan. So my next question goes to Mr. Shiranta Piris. Of course, we heard something very valuable information from the BUI about the strategic direction, and then from Sushara about the financing, and then also from Shan about the technology, interference of technology. And, but still, this is a service-centric industry, okay? So finally, what matters is the human capital. These are basically supporting functions. And you are basically into a very important institution to train the human capital and the human talent. And how do you see that? And as far as the SLITM is a concern, how do you look at this process, especially in greening the tourism industry? And how do you, what challenges you are facing, you may face, when the Sri Lanka is turning the industry into a green industry, and how do you face this challenge? Because you are responsible for producing the human talent. Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Right, thank you, Ajit. Good morning, everybody, and happy World Tourism Day. I think initially we need to strike a balance in economic growth, basically increasing product and services to individuals, environment, and social responsibility. In doing so, we need to create awareness in employees as well as our students and educate them in green tourism culture. Every single department has to be part and parcel of this exercise, whether it is maintenance, IT, or HR. Now, speaking of human resource or HR department, I'd like to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, how many job interviews do you think is taking place right now in Sri Lanka? Per day, per week, per month, and it goes on. What if we incorporate a question on green culture in job interviews, whether it comes under the generic area or the competency-based questions, it doesn't matter. People will start wondering what this question is all about. They'll be curious. They'll do research. They'll read and understand what green culture is, whether it is in tourism or any other industry. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is creating awareness with little or no cost. If you're a student at SLITM, I'll take you back to your childhood. Would you prefer to carry a plastic bottle with your beverage and a plastic container with your snack? Or would you prefer to carry glassware, which is heavier? Because most students take public transport. So we have a lot to do. Do we at SLITM position water dispensers on every floor with disposable cups or biodegradable? But there's a cost. There'll be long lines during breaks, but we will have to find a way out. We will encourage students to use books made of recycled paper. Prasanjit touched on this, renewable energy. We have already initiated dialogue, and we will start our first project in our Kandy Slitham Hotel School with renewable energy, which will be up and running next year. Having said that, it was only a few days ago, I was at an event, the IPOP event organized by USAID. And during an informal conversation, I said, I think Slitham should replace plastic bottles with glass bottles for all meetings moving forward. I'll speak about the challenges, Ajit, as we go on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we are going on to the second round. So I'd like to, I think, all in all, I'd say all four speakers came out with very valuable information. And I mean, this basically food for thought. But I would like to say that every day we have so many forums like this, and this is not the first, and also this is not going to be the last. What is important is for us to, this forum, to produce some the policies, you know, like the suggestions for the policymakers, I mean, for their attention. So I'm basically at the second round. I'm more specific on your proposals, what you would love to see, right, or the changes in the existing policy framework. I'm sure that's what's really expected of us. So, Prasanjit, I think Sri Lanka is talking about the green investment, green tourism, everything. But we are not the only one country, right? We're also focusing on that. And there are so many countries they have gone to some extent, but perhaps the Sri Lanka is a little behind. So with that statement, I would like to say what prospects Sri Lanka will have, right, to attract the required amount of investments, because it's a competition. The investors will look for many options. How we could basically improve the policy framework, at least, to attract, in a competition, to attract more investments into Sri Lanka. Please include your answer, also the covering what the new policies you would love to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajit. Wow, you seem to have all the tricky ones. In terms of new policy, like I said, if we go back to the newly revealed, policy in terms of climate change, and we work forwards from there, I think what we need to work on is the second layer of getting things done. So that is, how do we enable organizations, and how do we task organizations, or do we have some system of KPIs or some sort of methodology for actually getting these deliverables, achieving these deliverables or milestones. So it's all well and good to speak of 35%. I won't spend too much time on the energy thing because it's a bit hacked, but it's all well and good to say that there's headroom for growth and so on and so forth, say that we have 7 years. But where is that reflected in our long-term power generation plan? So then what are the modifications that we are doing? If not, they say, like, doing the same thing and expecting different results is, it's basically insanity. So we need to make sure that we don't do that. We need to come up with new ways in how we simplify the process of implementing these policies. So the policy level, I think, broadly, it's at a good place. But how do you cascade that through the rest of the machinery? I don't like to use the word bureaucracy, but that's the elephant in the room, right? How do you get it through the bureaucracy and down to ground level? And to that, we need to be a little creative. We need to be, this is again a bit of a hacked word, but we need to be agile in how we think about these things. And agility and bureaucracy are like two ends of a stick, right? So we have to compromise. And of course, like you said, we are a little behind the ball here. And there are other countries that are doing this. So there's, I would say, copy with pride where you've seen that it works. And of course, I mean, that's where a lot of the global partner agencies come into play. So it's a sharing of best practices. And so I would say it's less to do on the policy side, but more to do on the implementation side that I'd like to see some of these changes. And that's across the board. I mean, renewable energy is just one sector, one vertical. I mean, even if you take renewable energy, for example, something we are often told is, listen, there's only so much capacity we have on the grid at the moment. So then let's look at energy export. That's the vertical we are not talking about. And we keep talking about needing to diversify our export basket. So let's look at exporting energy. We are at the tip of the South Indian Peninsula. Massive demand for energy over there. Also focusing on going green. So there you go. There's a case study right there. But we need to look at doing things differently. It's not just for local consumption then. We need to look at then the transmission infrastructure. You need to look at a couple of different angles like that suddenly make this business case bankable. So that would be my take on it. I think on the policy side, we've got the basics. We really need to work on the implementation side. And that's, I think, a responsibility across the board from both. I think the private sector is certainly ahead of the game there. But on the state sector, I must say that we've got a lot to do. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And just a quick question to you. Because since we have a focus on the green investment and the green economy, don't you think that you should, the Sri Lanka should must have a new tax exemptions on this particular subject, whereas the other countries, I believe, have given more than us. Don't you think that it's a vital thing that, of course, there is an argument that the tax holidays may not be the crucial, but still I believe, since we are all out and also Sri Lanka is facing a crisis and we are just coming out of it, but to basically expedite it, right? Don't you think that the Sri Lanka should give more tax benefits to the people who invest in the green sector?
I think if we go a little deeper into this, so for starters, right now, I think being in the IMF program and so on, the minute you mention tax holiday or to look at it from a broader base, discounting government revenue, you're kind of on the back foot there. And having said that, maybe there's something interesting in the President's message on this climate change policy, where they're talking about climate change swaps and to include that in debt restructuring. So maybe if there is some recognition and you create a mechanism where there is, both sides of that debit and credit are matched, then maybe you can consider some sort of discounting as well in terms of state revenue. But see, typically if you take most of the renewable energy related infrastructure as well, it's like either single digit or zero duty. I mean, you get your pelts, that kind of thing, which is, depending on the benefit it brings to the table, which can be discounted, and those are things that we do lobby for, depending on the nature of the investment. But I think we need to look beyond the traditional, and I suppose this is true for almost all investments. If you relatively rank Sri Lanka against most of our peer countries, I think one of the mistakes we do is we look at peer countries, we compare ourselves against the Singapore, Malaysia kind of thing, whereas we're actually in a slightly different tier. And if you look at what the peer countries offer, it's more on the soft side than the real balance sheet oriented incentives. So we need to be cognizant of that as well and figure out what works and what's attractive. Yeah.
Thank you, Prasanjit. Sushara, I want to ask you this question. Do you think that Sri Lanka is really, even though on the balance sheets, annual reports, or maybe on the advertisements, so we have seen generally the Sri Lankan banking industry and the finance industry is basically doing actually something to promote the green economy. But do you think that your policies, like if you look at the risk factor, and the bankers always looking from the risk point of view, okay? And you may say that, you are responsible for your depositors' money, and what is lent has to be represented in asset. This is a very famous argument. I am also ex-banker, so I also used to give that answer those days. But I think that is something, we need to relook at it, and how we could basically manage this matter. Because I feel that the bankers should come out that very rigid framework, okay, when it's come to lending, because your financing is very important to create a green economy. If no finance or restricted finance, actually we can't look at it very, very positive. I mean, this is the fact, and these are the facts that we should face. So I want to ask you the question. We are not seen in Sri Lanka because you are basically dependent on the depositors' money, but in other countries, they have introduced the green bonds, okay? So Sri Lanka, I believe that we are not heard of those things. Or can you think of any new financial instruments to strengthen the bankers' position so that they can basically lend, right, towards the green economy in a very effective way?
Loaded question, I must say. Yes, so actually, yes, we lend depositors money. So we need to be very mindful that we are able to return that money and the interest that we have promised on that. So yes, we have to be very, we need to do a detailed evaluation of any proposal that does come our way. And yes, we are to an extent security conscious, and that is something that we have always been, but it is not necessarily that the asset liability needed to be matched in each sense. It's actually to ensure that we do get the commitment of the party to whom we lend the money is going to settle. There's something that they have to lose in the event they do not repay or do not run the business in a responsible manner, because it is important to ensure that we do get back the money that we have lent to them. So we do balance sheet financing also, which is where we do not have the security taken in. So large conglomerates like John Keel's and people like that would be able to sometimes obtain financing without security. But it is always a chicken and egg situation. We always need to be very mindful as to, are we comfortable with the credit risk that we are taking? Does that other party have enough to lose in the event something goes wrong? Because that party has to take the responsibility to pay back, actually. And it is not the banker's business, so to speak, to run those businesses. We expect the party to whom we lend the money to run the business and to repay. So in that context, I think there are certain instruments that we have also introduced without the pure physical security being taken in, which is cash flow financing, where securitizations come into play. So securitization is pure cash flow financing, where the top line is considered. And based on the pattern that we see on the top line, you can carve out some income from, say, the hotel sector, for instance, how they have been earning over the years. I mean, we've had a bad patch, but, you can take the general revenue that has been coming in for that sector, and maybe you could securitize those. So that kind of instrument is certainly available. On the green bond side, actually, that is something that our bank is very actively looking at, and even some other banks as well, I'm sure. That is the way in which we are looking at it, is to try to raise funds for ourselves so that we get, because you need a large amount to be raised. It's pointless raising at a small entity level sometimes. It doesn't make any financial sense because there are lots of costs involved. So you need to raise a sizable quantity or quantum of debt so through these bonds. So we are all working towards that to try to get green bonds going at our institutions so that we can attract maybe lower cost funds, hopefully, by showcasing that we do have a strong green bond framework and that we are going to deploy these monies to green oriented lending, and that we hopefully, if we do get it at reasonably low cost, which is a debatable point because it's very much close to how they would view another bond as well. But then we can pass on that benefit to the customers as well. Just something that Priyanjit was talking about. Actually, you asked the question as to whether incentives could be provided. Actually, for a bond like that, to get it started, to get it going, if some incentive could be given, I think it will actually benefit the intermediary as well as the ultimate borrower, and you would actually see some development taking place because there would be some amount of concession that could be passed on to those parties to take on those activities. So that is one thing that I think we could do.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, Shan, this transformation of industries or economy into a green economy, yeah, it is very nice, the concept which the world has accepted, and most of the countries now have a legal and the binding documents they have signed. So, but it's not that easy. According to McKinsey reports, the research, it will cost anywhere between 125 trillion US dollars to 275 trillion US dollars. But these figures have been differed from institution to institution. But definitely it's a high cost, the issue. So how you could bring in the innovation and technology to address this, the need for a big investment or the cost of the transformation? Over to you.
So I think the bigger question is in terms of scale, right? So if you look at John Kiss as a group has been able to invest heavily on tech because we had the scale in terms of 70 companies, 5 industries, so which also became a vehicle for us to make digital a platform for innovation, right? So for example, linear value chains have gone, right? So no one today does backward integration or forward integration. So today we talk about value ecosystem, Uberization, right? So are we leveraging each other's assets? So today within John Case, because of the digital platform, the companies are leveraging each other's assets, right? So Keel Super will ask JK Logistics to manage their logistics, right? Hotels would purchase their fresh groceries from Keel Super, right? So because that visibility and the accessibility is there in terms of digital platform. So I always say digital is a blank canvas. What you want to paint, which dots you want to connect is up to you, right? So if you want to build scale for even Sri Lanka tourism, what needs to get connected at a country level is up to us, right? That canvas has to get painted. But that canvas is what will differentiate you. You take Singapore, you take Dubai, they have a floating population which is bigger than their resident population, right? Because the tourism arrivals and tourism itself is bigger than the basic population, right? Sri Lanka hasn't gone there. But if Sri Lanka were to go there, our entire economic equation and the digital platform which needs to get enabled is totally different. Because otherwise we will not be able to scale. I think that's where the issue is. I think we need to look at what do we need to kind of create as a foundational layer so the innovation could happen at scale, right? So today we talk about startups, we have at best 1,000 startups, but none have really kind of gone to the scale other than PicMe or few other to fuel innovation, right? So we talk about AI, we talk about blockchain, all of that, but we could talk about all the tech which is under the sun, but is it adding value to our economy? And do we have scale to use those technologies? I think that's where the bigger question is. So unless someone comes into a common platform where we are able to leverage that, it's going to be a challenge to break the cross barrier. So that's where I would park it. It's all about scale and people wanting to collaborate, co-innovate, and co-create rather than wanting to own everything themselves. I think our cultural mindset have to change.
Okay, thank you very much. But I think finally the most important thing is how effective the process is. Okay? I feel that big companies can somehow survive and they can achieve their targets, but SMEs, we were talking about SME tourism, but how basically, what is your recommendation for them to fall in line with the process of turning their hotels or establishments into the green industry? You can.
Okay. So I think primarily, I think it's again, if you look at what we've seen is now Cinnamon Hotels per se does a lot of branding. We got Moog out at about a month back. So we are at least creating a conduit to bring a lot more tourists into the country, right? So when a tourist comes to the country, he doesn't just stay at John K's Hotel, right? So it's an ecosystem which evolves, right? So for a tourist who comes into this country, he needs to be aware these are his choices, right? So are we in the face of a tourist who arrives into this country in terms of what are the possibilities, right? I think that's where I feel still, again, now we've kind of co-funded a startup called Balamu, right? So their whole thing is a digital guide, right? So if they download the app, if I'm in Badulay tells me, okay, these are the interesting places, these are the places you could eat. So it's more like a tour guide, virtual tour guide, right? So now these are the kind of things we would need for a tourist to figure himself out. Now if you look at in other countries, you go to Dubai and all, you download an app, you have all the stuff that you want to know. You don't have to go and ask someone else, right? So the whole issue is about the Uberization of the economy is all about making digital information freely available to anyone who wants to use it, right? So the SMB sector would benefit if they are on the map. So if someone is at Bentura Hotel, if someone is at Bentura Hotel looking for options to do, because if you look at most tourists come on bread and breakfast, right? So they only come to sleep, maybe have breakfast, but after time they're out. But when they're out, where are they going, right? So that's the SMB game, right? If you look at Thailand, 80% of the revenue is SMB, right? The local population is doing the entire fun stuff, all of that around the thing. But in Sri Lanka, we don't have that. So partly I would blame the banking sector also because, like you said, if they want to go and ask to borrow something, arm and a leg could be what we asked in return. So we are not creating enough entrepreneurs for the SME sector to thrive. I would say short answer is that it's not tech which is a bottleneck.
Okay, thanks. Chiranta, the next question. Sri Lanka is going to attract, I believe, 4 million tourists by 2030. So in terms, so you have a huge task, how we could basically cope up that demand. And it's finally, yes, technology, finance, strategic direction from BOI or these institutions there, but it is finally with the right attitude, the competencies, focus, and the service excellence. So how do we basically meet these challenges? We have the time till 2030. I mean, sometime we are okay with that. This is a time period. But strictly speaking, the time is flying and it's not a very, very long period as well. But this is our ambition to reach these numbers. I believe in 2018, we had the biggest revenue. We got, I believe, 4 billion, something around 4 billion. And then 19 was little down. And then the highest, I believe, the number of arrivals is about 2 million, okay? But so that now we are basically looking for very, very higher numbers. So, what do you think that how basically, since this is a very service-centric industry, okay, how do we cope up with this, and how do we delight the customer finally through the well competent and motivated workforce? Over to you.
Yeah. From education perspective, we, like I mentioned earlier, we will be educating, incorporating the green culture in the curriculum. And also, we have to gradually get rid of, for example, the plastics from our purchases out of the supply chain and the procurement process. Relatively, we are a small buyer, speaking of Slitham. But across the board, if all industries adapt to this practice, then the manufacturer also will shift. Because it is pointless us talking and educating our staff and doing everything possible to support the green tourism culture when the manufacturer floods the market with poison. So I think we have 6 years, as you mentioned, Ajit, targeting 4 million arrivals in 2030, right? We need to gradually take one step at a time. And I mean, easily said, all the best practices should be converted to a policy. For example, incorporating let's say, whatever has been incorporated in the code of conduct, where these practices, these ethical practices are made mandatory. So that's part of your performance as well. And you spoke of the countries at the beginning. There's so many countries. Now, if you look at the top 8 countries, there is only one Asian country listed there, and that's Japan, right? We have a lot to learn from the other countries as well. And also preparing the tourists before they arrive. Now, if I'm to go to Bhutan next month on a holiday, I know what their expectations are. So today we know the tourists, they do research before they go to a place. And creating awareness about where Sri Lanka is, we have initiated to transform, going into, establishing, of course with time, the green culture, the green tourism culture, so that they come prepared to support. And I'm sure they are going to support us, not for them to arrive here and then understand, wow, okay, this is happening. So that education too also must be, extended and use all the platforms to create this. And as I always say, we have to, I cannot speak about green culture and send an email to you, Ajit, requesting for 500 plastic bottles of water, and beneath my email signature says, supporting green environment. So I think we have to take the first step. If we are calling shots, we need to lead by example and then make sure that everyone embraces. There'll be a lot of challenges because like I said before, do you expect a child to carry glassware and come? So how do we support this? There'll be a cost, right? There'll be challenges when the manufacturer shifting from one to another. There's a huge cost involved. So without challenges, I don't think we can get anywhere. So from education perspective, even it has to not only Slitham, all the other institutes from school level, educating the children, even the school children. I know some of the schools practice this, but I don't see it is practiced as much as we preach. This is my concern. So we need to start at grassroots level from the student upwards. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Shiranta. And we have, I believe, 5 minutes more. I would like to request and give the opportunity to the audience to ask a couple of questions. We can accommodate maybe 5 to 10 minutes we have. So the floor is yours. Anybody want to ask questions? Sure, from the private sector, there are representatives. I believe they must have at least a couple of questions to ask.
You mentioned about startups and why only Pick Me and few others have scaled. Now, when you compare with Israel or Estonia, where relatively smaller population, but they have unicorns. So why do you think that Sri Lanka is not doing something right compared to those smaller populations where they have built large unicorns, which are global?
I think the bigger challenge is the venture capital side of the equation. Now, if you look at, we started a corporate kind of VC culture way back in 2016. Now I see more companies coming on board like Hemas. So I think it's about companies also believing that innovation should and will happen outside the organization, right? And co-innovation is the way to go. So that we believe that we are part of an ecosystem and not within the four walls that we have built around us. So I think if you look at, obviously because of the loss of the land, now today I don't think boards of organization endorse the corporate becoming venture capitalists, right? Because of the traditional mindset. So I think that's something that we need to break, right? Today we blame the banking system for not lending, but corporates also have the same mindset at the board level. So I think we have to throw away the old strictures, because today we are saying we are in an ecosystem, we want to leverage each other's assets, which also means that we have to invest in other people's assets, right? I think that entire culture needs to change, because Israel and all have been, if you look at Israel, Ireland, Singapore, Dubai, they had no other option but to grow through innovation. I think we are probably maybe a bit lethargic and in our comfort zones, so to speak, that we are not forced out to drive innovation. It's not in our DNA, unless you're pushed to it.
And one more question. Do you think platforms like Kickstarter or, like crowdfunding, when traditional investments are not coming through?
It should, because I think, again, I would think it's a regulatory thing, right? Whether it's IRD or central bank, a lot of the strictures, whether they adopt clouds, there are a lot of strictures which says you can't do this, you can't do that. But I think we also need to kind of fall in line with where the world is going in terms of regulation as well. Right now there are peer-to-peer funding. Now we had a startup called Helios, which we divested. Central bank took almost 6 months to approve that, right? It's a peer-to-peer funding. But the whole issue is they also need to be ahead of the game in figuring out regulations which would enable this, not to become a speed bump in stopping that.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would too, as the moderator, like to ask a couple of questions. One goes to Shirantha. And you have basically formed partnerships recently with Skill for Inclusive Growth and the introduction of professional business coaching to revive the SME sector in the tourism sector. So what would you like to say, how do you see that, how helpful that would be for you to come across, overcome the challenges, something like a concept like a professional business coaching for SMEs?
Yep. SMEs, as we know, plays a very critical role in tourism. And definitely, they will require professional coaching. And if I connect to supporting a green tourism culture, they'll definitely face obstacles in terms of could be waste management, garbage disposal, and knowledge, their capacity, and also the cost, upfront cost. So I think everybody should work together, all stakeholders supporting each other to ensure that the SMEs too are very much in line with supporting the green tourism culture. And in terms of business coaching, yes, we have introduced a program 2 months ago, if not mistaken, with the support of S4IG. And we will definitely be spreading this training program across. We have 9 schools in all 9 districts, and we intend having these courses for the SME sector in all 9 provinces. Besides that, I like to also add, we will not restrict to the 9 schools. We are collaborating with VTA to support them, and in the hospitality arm, where the SMEs will get a great opportunity to come to over 50 centers and follow the business, coaching program. And we are very much committed, not only restricting to that, from homestays to, and ensure by 2030, not only we support the green culture, but also we are ready for the 4 million arrivals. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And my last question goes to Sushar, I believe. The Sri Lanka Carbon Crediting Scheme is a national offset scheme established for supporting local clean projects. Either Sushara or Shan can answer from the climate finance. How do you basically see the drive through this scheme? Is your bank is ready to support the clean projects and for the companies to achieve this carbon credit scheme? I think one of you can answer.
I think it's a good initiative, like you said about the green bonds. Even Malaysia, even because I was part of an Islamic banking forum about a month back here, they were talking about green bonds, right? As part of Sharia, they wanted to issue because they felt that they were kind of drying out of investment opportunities, and Malaysia is doing that. So I think it's all about looking at an incentive to launch these kind of new products, because obviously people will be skeptical to invest in these kind of things. And even carbon exchanges are globally available, but I don't think Sri Lankan companies probably understood how it's working or maybe part of it. So a lot of the stuff is about knowledge dissemination, I would think. The platform for people to know that these kind of things are there, and how do I get onto the bandwagon? So I feel a lot of the time we let these opportunities pass because of knowledge gaps and leadership not understanding how this works, and not having the boldness to say, I don't know this, can I learn this? Right? I think that's where I think the bigger issue is. It's not about the commercial viability of it. Well, a lot of the Indian companies are doing it.
Okay. Thanks, Shan. We are coming to the end of the session, and I'm sure that the speakers here had basically given a lot of the information and new knowledge, and also critically evaluating the existing system. That is what is really required. And but once again, I always stress at every forum, the talking is one, but transforming itself, that it's into a action, is another one. And I just, like to end up this session with a small story, and you might probably laugh when you listen to me. When I was traveling in a taxi, I was talking about the various issues in Sri Lanka. And I asked the taxi driver, what do you think that, right, if we are going to overcome these problems? He said, sir, we should leave the NATO. And I was taken aback. What do you mean that NATO? We never became a member of the NATO. No, sir, we are a member of NATO. And I then got a call immediately to a very senior diplomat in our foreign ministry, and I asked, had we at least secretly obtained the membership of NATO? She said, no, we never became a member. So I reconfirmed to the taxi driver. And he said, no, sir, I mean NATO is nothing to do with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Those NATO is no talk, only talk. NATO is no action but a talk only. So we should, the taxi driver, that philosophy, it's basically giving us a impulse, something that we would love to create the policy documents by the policy makers, and to create a very conducive the culture, and then these concepts will work. And also the most important thing, I believe, is to take immediate actions on the climate change. If that is not a disaster we are facing the world, actually we are heading for a calamity. Okay, so this is all I think we had to discuss today, and all your thoughts we would put into a paper, and as the suggestions we will share it with all the line agencies. So hopefully the policy makers will give the due consideration to improve the existing situation. So thank you very much. I must very profusely thank the Prasanjit, Sushara, Shan, and Shiranta for your valuable ideas and suggestions. We are only 5 minutes behind the schedule, but I would like to hand over the proceedings to the compeer. Thank you very much, and thanks for your valuable contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam, gentlemen on stage, be requested to kindly remain. Can we request you to remain on stage? Please remain on stage, because we are going to present tokens of appreciation to, you may be seated, just for a few seconds. We'd like to invite two people on stage, Mr. Buena Kaherat, Secretary to the Ministry of Tourism and Lands, and also Mr. Priyanth Fernando, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. Gentlemen, can we have you on stage? Let's put our hands together and welcome them on stage, as they will be presenting tokens of appreciation to our panelists. So, yes, we have the tokens being brought on stage, and let's begin our presentation. So, even to the gallows, they say ladies first. So, we'd like to first invite Madam Sushara Vidyasagara. Let's put our hands together. We request you to face the photographers as well, because we have photographers capturing you. Our panelists being thanked, Mr. Prasanjit Vidyatilaka. Your applause can be a little louder than that. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Presenting tokens of appreciation to our panelists. Next, we invite Dr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan. Dr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan. And last but not least, Mr. Shiranta Perez. Once again, requesting you to face the photographers. We're not yet done with the token presentation. We have, lastly but not the least, we have a very special token of appreciation, and that is to be presented to our keynote speaker. So could you please put your hands together and welcome Madam Azusa Kubota. And also we say a big thank you and invite our moderator, Mr. Ajit D. Pereira. So can we have a big round of applause for all our distinguished delegates who are present here, for sharing your thoughts, insights. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to all our panelists as well. Thank you very much. Once again, let's put our hands together. We had a very interesting panel discussion, and I'm sure you have lots of ideas, lots of thought-provoking insights that were created, and these will definitely stimulate you to take tourism in Sri Lanka to greater heights. Right. එවනම් ලෝක සංචාරක දිනය 2023 ඒ සඳහා පැවැත්වුණු නිල උත්සවයේ වැඩ කටයුතු අපි අවසන් කරන්නයි මේ සූදානම. නිරූපිතා.
நிச்சயமாக இத்துடன் சுற்றுலா தினம் 2023க்கான நிகழ்வுகள் நிறைவு பெறுகிறது. இந்த ஆக்கப்பூர்வமான நிகழ்வு மற்றும் கலந்துரையாடலில் கலந்து கொண்ட உங்கள் அனைவருக்கும் நன்றிகளை தெரிவித்துக் கொண்டு நாங்களும் விடைபெற்றுக் கொள்கிறோம். உங்களுக்கான சிற்றுண்டிகள் அரங்கினுடைய வலப்பக்கத்திலே இருக்கிறது. சிற்றுண்டிகளையும் நீங்கள் பெற்றுக்கொள்ளலாம்.
Right, so we'll be inviting all of you for refreshments, and it was very heartening and encouraging to note that on the eve of the World Tourism Day, Sri Lanka recorded the millionth tourist entering Sri Lanka, visiting Sri Lanka with the arrival of that Russian family of tourists. And we hope and pray that more and more millions and millions of tourists will visit Sri Lanka, and we have great infrastructure laid out by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority and also the aligned agencies as well. So thank you once again for your gracious presence. Wish you a great day, and we invite you for refreshments. Refreshment area is that area. The doors will be open and you walk in for the refreshments. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Ayubowan. Jai Veva to all of you.